Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Chris Rowe of Rowe Hunting Resources, and Chris is headed out on his over-the-counter Colorado elk 2017 season, and we've been breaking down a bunch of different scenarios with elk in mind, and a bunch of different tactics questions and behavioral questions and what have you. Chris, I want to end this series with a question that you've gotten in from some of your members, some of your subscribers, and that is, well, it's two-part. I want to start with this question and then end with your equipment and what changes you've made. But before we do that, I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank Go Hunt Insider. Guys, check the show notes. They're doing a 30-day free trial of the Insider program. Kuyu Ultralight Hunting's mobile showroom is traveling all around the country, and you can check the show notes to find out where they're at and if they're going to be close to you, as well as the Outdoorsman's and Phone Scope. I want to thank them for their support. Chris, you had a question come in that's when would you camp out on an elk or camp near an elk? And I'm not so sure if they mean like if you find a big one, do you actually physically camp and get close to them, or I guess we can talk about all of that.
And I think you're right. I'm with you. I've had both questions, and I know you have too. How far do you set camp? When you get back in the backcountry, or if you're wherever you camp, how close do you camp to the elk? And then this person's question I think was geared towards, if you find one that's a good bull, do you camp on him? And if so, when would I do that?
So my question is, you're going out this weekend, or say in years past in your high country camps where you have basins and you've poked in there, you see a bunch of elk, like how far away, and how much disturbance, if it's just you usually, I would assume you can be pretty quiet and you maybe can camp closer. If you've got a big group, you obviously have to stay away, but what's your answer to the question?
Well, for me, typically, and I'll qualify, but I typically will camp about a 30-minute hike away. Now, that may mean that it's up and over the next ridge, so like my high country camp, I'll hunt one basin, but I'm actually up and over a prominent saddle, so I'm not even in the same drainage as the elk that I'm looking to go after. But I'm only about a 30-minute hike to put myself within striking distance of those, of that basin. So, in that case, I'm in a different drainage, so the thermals are completely different. I don't have to worry about my scent screwing anything up, and quite honestly, even noise or light. I mean, I'm in a completely different drainage. So, but where I'm headed this year, in a lower elevation area, I'm in the same valley that the elk are going to be in that I'm going to be hunting. So, again, I will tend to hike in and camp well below them, to where when I get up in the morning, each morning, I'm making about a 30-minute trek up the bottom of the valley, or I'll climb up on the ridge and hike across the ridge, but I'm usually about 30 minutes away. It usually puts me about a mile. I try to roughly a mile from where the elk activity is where I usually set my primary camp up. And I'm not. You kind of alluded to it, as far as noise and light. There's some people that love having a campfire and big camp. I never have a campfire. I don't. Me personally, I don't like. There's a lot of light associated to it. There's a lot of smoke and scent associated with it. And quite honestly, to be brutally honest, I'm one of those guys that campfire smoke usually follows me around, and I usually end up getting smoked out. I just don't like smelling like campfire smoke.
But you love cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, cigarette throat tonsillitis, hacking along. Yeah.
You hate cigarette smoke like I do.
Oh, with a passion. Yeah. So that's, I keep a very quiet camp, and a very light, sensitive camp. Now, in the years past when Kelly, my wife, is camped with me, and we had a horse camp, okay, maybe I camped a little farther away, but we'd have a light, a lantern, and we'd be talking and laughing. Probably a mile and a half at that point away from where the bulk of the elk activity was. So that way, it wasn't gonna disturb anything. It wasn't gonna mess anything up. As far as whether I camp on a bull, I never have. I really never have. I guess the only time I probably would is if I found a giant bull a ways away from camp. I got on him the night before, and he was just parked in one single area and just wasn't moving much. At that point, maybe typically what I'll do is just maybe do a spike camp. I'll make a concerted effort to make a separate little spike camp just to get myself inserted closer to the area that he's in. But again, same thing. I'm usually going to try to find, a saddle to drop over or a little ridge to drop over, or, I'm going to try to tuck out of the way to where my scent from camp and me being there and cooking and everything else otherwise, hopefully my scent is not going to wander around the area that he's in and blow the whole thing out.
Makes sense. I think you covered that pretty well. What is your setup this year? I know you've made some changes. Go through your setup and why you've made the changes, and then it'll be interesting after the season to double back with you and see if these changes that you've made, if you're satisfied with them, or if you're going to make more changes.
Well, I can tell you right now, just from what I've seen so far, I'm really happy. A lot of people, if folks who know me, probably know that I'm on the pro staff for PSE. So, yes, full disclosure, I get a really good deal on new bows. So I'm not paying retail for a new bow. However, I did go ahead and I've shot the same bow for the past number of years, and and that's the other thing too. Is you'll see some guys and gals that are associated with companies. Every year they got something new. I'm usually not that way. And I've talked to PSC about it. I usually will change setups if there's something different that makes it worthwhile. There's a reason for the change. And so this year they came up with their evolved cam system and their new evolved bows, and man, I've got that evolved 35, and oh man, it is a sweet shooting bow. It is a sweet shooting bow. It's probably the best bow I've ever shot in my life. It's just everything from draw cycle to how it stops to how it holds. It's a great bow. So that right there made a big difference on just comfort and feel and draw and anchor. Everything was awesome with that. The other thing that I've struggled with in the past is just the way my eyes are. I'm 45 now, and some of you that are listening know exactly what I'm about to dive into with my eyesight, because it doesn't matter if you have corrected vision or not, and you see clearly or not. When you get to about your 42 to 45, some people end up having trouble seeing their pins clearly. Now, again, I shoot compound, and I do shoot pins. It doesn't matter if you shoot one pin or if it's got 5 or 7 pins. It doesn't matter, because even one pin, you look at one pin now rather than just a fuzzy single dot. If I focus on the target, put the pin on the target, in the past it used to be just a fuzzy single dot. Well, the problem now is if there's 4 of them. There's 4 or 5 separate fuzzy dots. The way my eye focuses and the way my eye perceives it creates a cluster of pins, not just one. And I've been fighting that for the past couple of years just badly. You'll hear people talk about verifiers with a V, verifiers in their peep, and that's what a verifier is for. It helps It's a little lens that sits inside your peep sight that will help bring that pin back into clarity. The problem is it makes your pin clear, but it makes your target blurry. The other problem is if you're hunting in rainstorms or snow or anything moisture, you get a drop of water on that thing in that tiny little opening and you're done. You can't even look through it. It definitely helps with your shooting, but it really sucks for hunting. I mean, it just really does. Well, my eyes are changing a little bit more, and so they've naturally kind of reduced their tendency to do so. But a lot of times, the reason why that problem with your eyesight can occur also is a result of glare that you can get through your normal peep sight. All right? And we don't even notice it happening, but you can get a little bit of light glare and light reflection off the edges and the surrounding area, the periphery of that peep sight that can actually cause interference and help exacerbate the problem of seeing those multiple pins. Well, Hamskea Archery, they make a peep sight now. It's called the Eyesight Peep System. For lack of a better way to describe it, it's like a little tube. But that little tube, so the peep sight is not your standard, just a round opening. It's actually about a half-inch long little tube. And then your aperture, your opening, whatever size opening you want for your peep, you can actually screw in different apertures. So you can have a very, very small little peep opening if you want, or you can have a very large opening if you want. You can tailor that peep system not only to the size of your sight housing, so you got your pin housing on your sight. The best way to really maximize efficiency and accuracy is to match your peep opening with the size of your pin housing. So the apertures that you can put in there, you can do that. But also, the awesome thing about this little system is it has internal baffles built into the tube, on the interior portion of the tube. And those baffles are engineered to be deep enough and wide enough to effectively eliminate all reflection, all glare coming through and out of that peep. So it truly is this black hole. I went from struggling with seeing 4 pins to where now it is literally it's just one larger fuzzy pin. I'm back now. I'm dead serious. I used to shoot 70, 80 plus yards for practice. My mule deer hunt, a lot of guys have watched that on the YouTube page or YouTube channel. That mule deer I killed back in 2011 was 60 yards, and I just pinned. I mean, I was shooting awesome. I mean, I just smoked him, and had absolute utter confidence at 60 without a problem. And I went from that, and then 2012, 13, 14, 15, and 16, my eyesight just tanked, and I got worse to where last year I could barely hit a pie plate at 40. Not because I couldn't hold my bow, not because I wasn't steady, but just because the pins were so messed up that without a verifier, I just had no confidence. It sucks. If anybody's out there struggling with it, A, I feel your pain, and B, get that little Hamskea Eyesight Peep system because it's incredible what it'll do. So those two changes right then and there made. I mean, I'm back to shooting 60 yards, and just if I'm doing my job, those arrows are stacking right in there, which is just awesome. It builds your confidence right back up. I've never killed a bull beyond 33 yards, but I like having the ability to shoot 60 if I need to. So those are two of the big ones. And then this year, I played around with my arrows. Seems like every 10 years, anybody that's been in archery for a long time knows, it seems like every 10 years there's this new kick about massive front of center. Large percentage FOC, high front of center, where you've got a lot of weight up front of your arrow. And it does. It kind of goes through these fads. It kind of goes through these, 10-year cycles. And I remember the last time it was, early 90s. I remember going through it back then. Well, it's not that there's anything wrong with, low front of center or heavy front of center. It's just gonna do different things with your arrow. And the advocates of heavy FOC, claim that they have better ability to penetrate and they're going to be a little bit more accurate. That may or may not be depending on your individual setup. But one thing that it can definitely help is in my opinion, if you lean a little. Now, if you look at the general literature, if you just look up front of center, FOC, all right. The general rule of thumb is you want your percent FOC somewhere between, I think it's like 7 and 15%. Okay, and there's look it up. There's equations on how you can calculate your FOC. But if you're down in that like 7 to 10% FOC, that means your arrow is really balanced, and the front end of it, the front half of your arrow is not much heavier than the back half of your arrow. Those arrows fly wonderfully, and they can just sail out there, and they fly great. But if you have any foibles in your form, whether it's your torque on your grip, or whether your torque on your release, or your punch in your release, if you have any problem in your form or in your release, it can be problematic trying to get a good paper tune, shoot a bullet hole through paper, and being consistent downrange. You can end up getting a lot of kick with the tail end of your arrow, and your arrow doesn't stabilize as quickly. You start getting up in the 10 to 15 range, where I kind of like to be. You get in the 10 to 15 range, I have found it seems my arrow tunes a lot easier. It stabilizes a lot quicker. It's a little bit more forgiving, but it still has a good trajectory arc. And the one thing that I've found for me, if I've ever gone beyond about 15% front of center, it's fine if you're shooting 20, 30, 40 yards. I mean, the arrows will just dive in there, but you start stretching it, you get 50, 60, 70, that pin gap starts to open up. The arrows just dive off at the end. They're very, very accurate, but your pin gap gets more and more and more. I like a moderate, the arrows I built this time are sitting, I think, about 12.5% FOC. And what I'm shooting, I've got Easton Axis, the full metal jackets, the regular full metal. I'm not a fan of the Deep Six, the skinny shafts. I just like the standard full metal jackets. I like the added weight of the full metal jacket. They're a very forgiving arrow. They hit hard. I've never had a problem with them bending or get damaged or anything like that. I know some people are a little leery of them, but I love them. But I've got at the FMJs, basically the 340 spine. I played around with, if you talk, like folks like Tim Gillingham and some of the other professional archers that are really, really good, they'll talk about the differences between 3-fletch and 4-fletch. And the beautiful thing about a 4-fletch is you've got basically the 4 quarters of the circumference of your arrow that you can turn that knock, and you can kind of basically find the sweet spot of your arrow on how it comes out of your bow and efficiently paper tunes. So I've always gone 3-fletch. This year I decided, I was like, well, I'll play around and I'll do a 4-fletch. And I do personally like having a lighted knock. I like I do. Well, we can have a discussion about that sometime, but I like knowing, really, really knowing where my arrow hits. I like being able to find my arrow. And if for some reason my arrow stays in the animal and the animal takes off down the mountain, I like having a lighted knock for all the reasons that people like lighted knocks. I really do. However, the I shoot nocturnals, they're 22 grains. So you stack 22 grains on the back end of your arrow, you're going to change the balance of your arrow. And then if you go 4-fletch, you're adding a little bit more weight to the back of your arrow. So you need to figure out what you're going to do to offset that balance on the front end. Now, you can go up and weight, point weight. You know, a lot of people shoot 100 grain tips. You can go up to a 125. That's fine. But since I added so much to the back of my arrow, I went ahead and I ran a brass insert. You can buy them. Easton sells them. They're a brass hit insert for your Easton arrows. So, and they're built to where you can either run them as is, and it's about 75 grains, or you can snap the back end back portion off and run about 50 grains. Mine are 49. Every time I snapped the end off, it was 49 grains. So I ran a brass insert in the front, and I'm shooting 125 grain head. I'm shooting the Iron Will Outfitters broadhead this year. So that arrow setup, man, is that thing flying sweet. I've got 12.5% FOC. The first shot, I basically eyeballed everything, got everything set the way I just eyeballing the rest with the string in the center, getting everything lined up on my bow, and I went out there, and the first shot, boom, bullet hole at 3 steps, step back to about 12 steps, boom, bullet hole, check the other arrows. They were just shooting bullet holes right out of the gate, and I went out to the target, made about 2 or 3 sight adjustment changes, and those things are just stacking. So, that arrow setup is awesome. And then there's the other thing this is for those of you that are subscribers, and that have followed me on social media. A couple of you guys have been paying attention. Know that I usually am running my Rage hypodermics. I love Rage hypodermics for a mechanical. And then all of a sudden people see me with a Iron Will Outfitters head this year. Check out Iron Will. They've got a great website that gives all sorts of specs on their heads, but basically it's a 2-blade with bleeder blade style head. It's only, quote unquote, only an 1/16 inch cutting diameter. They are expensive as sin. However, they're made out of A2 steel, and they got a stupidly thick main blade. And anybody knows anything about steel, A2 steel is what, if you want to cut steel, you use A2 steel to cut the other steel. So A2 steel is extremely hard, impact resistant, and you get an edge on that thing, it holds that edge, and it just won't let go. So these things come, literally shave hair off your arm sharp out of the box. And I've shot my practice head probably, I don't think I've made 100 shots, but I've got to be approaching 100 shots into foam. And with that particular head, I can still shave hair off my arm.
Wow.
So it holds its edge. It's just incredible. The reason why I had a very long talk with the guys at Iron Will, because anyway, we had a conversation. And the reason why I agreed to shoot the heads and test them out this year, there's no question that they work. I just generally prefer a larger cutting diameter head, but there's pluses and minuses to a large cutting diameter or a more impactful head. And this is a discussion, and the reason why I agreed to shoot their heads this year is because I'm going to be doing a comprehensive discussion on this topic for the elk module. But one of the disadvantages of a large cutting diameter head, especially like a Rage hypodermic, is when that arrow hits, it hits with like a freight train. And the animal feels it. And I'm not saying the animal feels it from a sense of pain. The animal feels the impact, and they react to it, and they're going to take off running. Well, that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on where you hit the animal and the terrain and the cover that you're in. Whereas sometimes the smaller diameter broadheads, or those broadheads that have a lower profile, a longer cutting length to cutting diameter, especially if they're a cut on contact, they may not put a very large hole in the animal, but they go through so quickly and so effectively and efficiently, the animal doesn't even know they've been hit. So I've literally killed elk with, pretty much every style of broad. I've killed them with Rages, I've killed them with slip tricks, I've killed them with Magnus, I've killed them with Steel Force, I've killed them with all sorts of styles and designs of head. And most of them I have video of. The only style of head I don't have video of to be able to effectively talk about the impact and the effectiveness of it, is a 2-blade with bleeder blade style head. So I was like, you know what? I should. I will use the Iron Will heads this year. They're made in America. They're the best engineered head I've ever seen, with the best steel I've ever seen. They're sharper than, as far as a cut-on contact head, a non-replaceable blade head. Now, you can replace the bleeder blades, but typically, like, say, Slick Trick, or it used to be Savora. Now they're Radical Archery Designs has them. Those blades, those replaceable blades, used to be made by a scalpel company, and I mean, you can get replaceable blades that are just scary sharp. Typically, in my experience, though, if you buy a factory-made, solid cut-on-contact head, they're sharp, but they're not stupid sharp. These are stupid sharp. These things are scary sharp. And they stay that way. So I thought, you know what, this would be an awesome opportunity to use this style of head for this upcoming video, and so that's why I'm using that head. But I chose the 125, again, just to give myself a little bit more balance in the FOC, because I'm running the lighted knock and the 4-vein, the 4-flex system. But, dude, I'm back into shooting the way I used to shoot, and
that's exciting.
Shooting with, when you're shooting with confidence, I mean, it changes the whole ball game. Last year when I went into the season, I was just like, because you're like, okay, well, the elk's going to come in. Please, dear Lord, let it be a close one, Because I just, if he had been 50 yards, I would have stood there and watched him, because there's no way I was ever going to take that shot. 40 yards, I was like, I might not still, because it was just brutal. But I'm back.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're going to carry some penetration with that setup too.
Yeah. I joked on the Instagram page. I was like, yeah, this train won't stop. It ain't going to stop. I mean, that's the thing, is that with that head being a small profile, just blazing sharp, and then you put that much momentum and penetrate, I mean, that arrow just is not going to stop. Which is awesome.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear how you do this weekend. And I mean, what's your plan? Are you there till you kill an elk and your family kills an elk, or do you have a timeline or time you have to get back, or what's your program?
Well, a little bit of both. They have a week, so this first week is the 3 of us are going to hunt, and that's what I told them. I said, listen, yes, Abe, he's 15 and he's got first go and first crack, and Tom has next crack, and quite honestly, both of those guys, they're going to shoot bulls that, if it's a legal bull, they're going to probably shoot it. Or even if it ends up being towards the end of their week and a cow comes in, they're probably going to just put one on the ground and get their first elk and fill the freezer. But I'm hunting too. I mean, Christy's not sitting on the sidelines on this one. We're going to take turns. And so, Abe will get first crack, Tom will get second crack, and then after that, it's, we round robin. Every opportunity that comes in, we switch. So it may be where Chris gets, a chance to shoot a bull first or whatever. We'll see. But I'm definitely going to lean heavy on letting these two guys get an opportunity to shoot a really nice bull, because I still have another week after that I can go. They're going to stay here for a week and then they're going to leave. I can hang out for another week. At some point, I do need to get back to Kansas for a very short window of time. I've got to take possession of a piece of equipment that we're going to talk about more in the future, to help us do some more food plots and better deer management.
Is that what you call it these days? Take delivery of a piece of equipment? Is that what you're calling it?
It literally is. Now, whether or not I find myself sitting in a ground blind on a particular field that has a couple 170-inch whitetails from opening day of Kansas archery season.
Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah.
We won't discuss that part of it. We'll skip over that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
As soon as I'm done with what I need to do in Kansas, and again, it's just going to be a couple days, because I really do want to scramble and get back down to Arizona for the opener archery down there about the 15th. And
awesome.
We've got a mutual friend down there. He's got a couple clients, and the antlers are looking great down there, and there's piles of bulls. It looks like it's going to be an absolute awesome season down there. So.
Well, good. Well, buddy, I wish you the best, and can't wait to follow you on Instagram and see some dead bulls. And I'll be looking forward to getting a text saying you got some elk down, and I don't know that I'll be on the come help me pack it out list, but I'll be definitely cheering for you.
I was just going to say, now, hey, I want to be able to keep your number on speed dial, right? You're in Colorado, right?
Yeah, it'll be like, who?
I can't.
I can't hear you. Yeah.
Yep. You break up. Can't touch.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Nice friend. Nice friend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right on.
Hopefully, Lord willing, it'll be a good week. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Thanks for spending time with us. Again, to the listeners, check the show notes, but you can sign up for Row Hunting Resources, the elk module, for a 3-month or a 1-year subscription, and has over 30 hours of video footage of elk doing their thing, and there's tons of information there for you guys to learn. And I've been a subscriber and member for years, and it's just it's an awesome resource. So knock 'em dead, bud. I'll catch you later. Okay.
All right, brother. Thanks again. And no, if we don't talk before you head out, you're heading to Wyoming, right?
Yep.
Well, safe travels for you guys as well, and I'll live vicariously through your Instagram page as well.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Take care.
All right, bro. Thanks.